Hey everyone, welcome to the newest episode of the Lawson Show.
Where you been? I can only watch so many reruns.
Yeah, I know it's been a while since we've had a show, but I've been doing the women's games in studio and actually doing weekly men's games as well. So out on the road every week. So I've seen all of the...
I've tuned into those.
Yeah. As you can see, we're excited to be joined by Mike Thibault, my coach of the Connecticut Sun. And just to recap last show, Renee Montgomery and I talked at length about the Diana Taurasi situation, and that has since come to a conclusion in a good way, for Diana, and just kind of what your thoughts were on that.
Well, I think, it's a good lesson for a lot of people to, kind of wait before judgment. I think a lot of people wanted to jump to a lot of different conclusions, and there were too many scenarios that could have played out. The one scenario that still hasn't played out is that she probably needs to get paid in somewhere. Yeah. She went without a contract for several months. I know that the team is suing the lab to try to recoup the money that it's cost them. That's probably the next thing, but at least for Diana's future in the WNBA and for the Olympic team and for next year overseas, it seems that all those have been cleared up. So that's great.
And that's the thing, you talk about reputation and what people remember. I mean, I was talking to someone the other day, and they brought up the situation, and I said, yeah, well, it's over now. She's been cleared. And they said, well, I didn't hear that. All they hear is...
And that's a major problem, too, because people only remember the sensational part of things, and when there is retractions and things like that, you don't quite get the same size of headlines. They don't quite get the same follow-up. And you get branded, whether it's fair or not, you get branded with whatever that person happens to remember last about you, even if it's not true.
It's unfortunate, and so for Diana's sake, and for our league and everybody, for people that compete against her, I mean, this is a better league, a better sport when she's there and playing, and I think all of us were kind of confused a little bit because it just didn't add up. I mean, I know we've had interaction with Diana and playing with her,
Exactly.
You've coached her, and it just didn't add up that much. So I think everyone's happy from the WNBA side that Diana will be playing this year. Let's go to our weekly fitness tip, and we'll come back with questions with Coach T and I. I'm here with David, and we are going to demonstrate different kinds of push-ups based on your level of strength. So the first type of push-up we're going to start off with is Damien's going to keep his knees on the ground, and he's going to get in push-up position, but again, his knees are on the ground, so this makes it a little bit easier, and he's going to execute a push-up. Even though his knees are on the ground, you see he's got straight edge here, he's keeping his abs in tight, and doing that push-up, working his chest, it's working his back here as he's tightening and coming back up. Now, if that's a little bit too easy for you, another way to make it more difficult is take something that you have in your house to elevate the angle of which you're doing your push-up. So now Damien will no longer have his knees on the ground. He'll be up in that nice, again, tight plank position and going down and up. Slow and controlled, all the way down, touching his chest to that case, down and up. Now as we graduate to something more difficult, he's going to execute what we would call a regular push-up. So, plank position, again, down and up. The key here is keeping your body like a straight board, all the way down and up. That's going to give you a really good burn. So if regular push-ups become a little bit too easy, there's different ways you can change your push-up angle, change your arm placement to create more tension in a specific area and try and build more strength. So the next one we're going to do is wide arm push-ups. And what this allows Damien to do is create more strength in his back. It's creating more pressure as he goes down and up and giving his back a little bit more of a workout than your run-of-the-mill regular push-up. Another one, if you want to attack your triceps, Damien can put his arms and place his hands closer together. That's going to give more tension here in the tricep area and work in that. As always, you can see, great form. His body is straight. You don't want your butt sticking up in the air. You don't want your pelvis sinking into the ground. You want to get all the effects in the push-up, and that's what Damien's doing. There's also a tricep push-up that I like to do that's really, really challenging, where you start on your forearms, and as you go to push up, to your hands. So it's really, really isolating now, this tricep area. Really, really getting a good burn there. And now Damien can also, using the same tricep form, alternate in which he goes up and coming back down. Now this is challenging his balance. You see his hips are having to work. You see his abs are having to work. And that's the great thing about push-ups, is that every body part is being worked in your upper body and your abs as well. So thanks, Damien, for demonstrating all those different push-ups. And again, a great exercise in which you don't need any equipment, you don't need to go to the gym, in a way that you can attack multiple areas of your upper body. Welcome back. Well, Coach, the off-season, a lot of times player movement, as it was for this team a year ago. So can you just update everyone on where the roster stands, and are there any differences from last year to this coming season?
Yeah, there'll be a couple, but it's certainly a lot quieter this off-season. I think, as you know, in signing you last year and making the trades that we did for the draft was probably the busiest off-season we've ever had. This year is a little bit calmer, quieter. Not to say that something wouldn't happen by draft time, but I think, we made enough changes last year, and we need to let our team just kind of grow up and mature and get another year together. I think we did a lot of good things, so I don't really want to mess with that too much. Obviously, a new addition will be Danielle McCrae coming in, who we drafted last year that was injured from the University of Kansas. She's had a great year over in Israel in the offseason. She'll be our biggest addition right now. We're probably losing Netta Jacobson, who is going to stay in Europe for the summer, unless some things change. So those are kind of the biggest changes. We're going to have kind of a set roster. We'll have everybody in training camp other than probably Sandrine, who will be late. But it'll be nice to go through a training camp where we have everybody together, we practice, we get used to each other, and we can kind of start the season kind of at full strength or close to it, without a lot of disruptions. Everybody will know how we play. It was just so new with Kelsey and Tina and Renee coming here and yourself. It was just really new. So it's been quiet for me. I've spent more of my time going to see our players overseas before Christmas, catch up on them, and just trying to help us grow up a little bit. So that's kind of been the tenor of the off season.
You also make scouting trips, and you mentioned that you did go over to Europe a couple of times. Who of the Connecticut Sun players were you able to see in action over there?
I did get to see Tina. I got to see Renee and Danielle actually play against each other. I visited Alison Hightower in France, and I keep trying to figure out a way to go see Kelsey, but it hasn't worked in the schedule very well, so we'll see where they are in their playoffs. But if it doesn't work, she'll be one of the ones I'll make a visit to next year. I've talked to most of them either by email or on the phone throughout the off season. Kept up with our other veterans. Tan went over late to Turkey, and so just trying to see them. I had a great time visiting with Tina, just seeing how much she's growing up and progressing, taking on some leadership qualities. It's going to be a whole different experience with her this time, and I think maybe the media attention will be a little bit less focused on her, and she can kind of just play and practice a little bit out of the spotlight. I think that will help her this year too.
A lot of players talk about going into the off season and say, hey, I want to work on this, or I want to come back and be better at this. For you and your coaching staff, what how do you approach the off season from that impact of looking at the whole team?
One of the things that I'm doing right now, and going through the process, is re-watching each of our games from last year and trying to take notes on what we did best, what we did poorly, try to maybe eliminate some things. We had players who felt maybe a little overwhelmed last year with too much offense, too much this. It really wasn't more than we've ever had before, but when you have that many new players and that many things being thrown out at you at once, I think what you do is go back and say, okay, what did we do best? Start with that, keep it simple, be really good at those things, and then add slowly as you go. So I've been trying to write down offensively all the things that we did well, that we had some continuity with, and start it as our base when we start training camp. Looking at a few things now that we have depth, maybe we can do defensively to take teams a little bit out of their offense or slow them down, and try to decide with our roster how the pieces fit. I kept struggling last year through a good portion of the season on how to fit certain players in. If you haven't coached them before, you don't know all of their strengths and weaknesses. So I think good coaching is accentuating the strengths and hiding some of the weaknesses. So that's kind of been my off season with our staff, trying to figure out going into training camp what we're good at, and let's start with that first.
We mentioned training camp, and that is approaching very quickly in a couple months. May 15th. Just announced for the Connecticut Sun are some of the preseason games. So could you just talk about who the matchups are and who will be playing?
Well, the matchups officially right now are at San Antonio twice, once at home and once down in Pocono Downs, the 25th of May at home. And then we may add one more exhibition game. We're looking at seeing about doing that. And then we'll probably have a scrimmage with another team in the Eastern Conference. It will be a closed scrimmage during training camp. But in our own building, there'll be the one game on May 25th. And so those tickets are just going on sale now for that game I think this week.
Is there a concerted effort to, when you're scheduling preseason games, to play kind of in the other conference because you're not going to see them as much, or what's kind of the thought process with that?
It's kind of been different. Sometimes you don't have a choice just by how the schedule works out and if you owe a team a game. We've done most of ours with other conference, although we've usually played one against either New York or Washington, one team in our conference. New York may be the team we scrimmage because we don't play them at all early in the season, so I don't think it'll make that much difference. You'd rather not let the teams in your conference see everything you do, especially if you're going to play them early. Like we play Chicago, I think, 3 times in the first month. That would be the last team I'd want to play in a preseason game. So that's kind of the philosophy. I think, if you have a good relationship with a coach on another team, that you can work things, or you'll say before the exhibition game, hey, we're going to do this, we're going to zone for part of it, or we're going to play man, and you can kind of work on some of that stuff. It helps both teams that way too.
Well, season tickets are already on sale. Mini plans just became on sale. You can always find information about tickets to the upcoming season on ConnecticutSun.com, on Facebook, and on Twitter. Let's get to our first question.
Jerry Reinsdorf said the Chicago Bulls could win at least 4 titles. Do you see them getting one?
Do I see them getting one? Yes, I think I do. Obviously, they have a great piece in Derrick Rose, who's had an MVP season. I think Tom Thibodeau has done a tremendous job transforming them to a defensive team, a team that can defend. And they've got pieces with Noah. And I think Luol Deng might be the key in terms of scoring, because they don't really have a 2-guard that can, really score the basketball. Derrick Rose takes on a lot of that scoring load.
Yeah, I think the one weakness that they've been trying to address is finding one more shooter on the perimeter. In the games that Deng has been great, they've been almost unstoppable. But that in the past has been kind of an inconsistent part of the game. They have depth now that they've never had with this group.
Yeah. And the experience, I guess, is the only thing that would come up. You would say against, I don't even know. I mean, really, a team like Boston. I mean, I don't know. Miami doesn't really have the experience together.
Yep.
Orlando, they're confusing to me. I mean, I haven't really figured them out yet.
They're going to have to lean on some guys, though, that maybe people have kind of forgotten about a little bit, like a Kurt Thomas. You and I have talked about that before, who is going to need to give them that kind of rock off the bench, or just guidance through the playoff series. Boozers needs to play, kind of more like the veteran player that they hoped they had gotten in this trade. Those kind of guys are going to be big because they're going to play against guys in their conference who excel at attacking the rim, and they need guys in there who can handle that.
Coach, sticking with your old team of the Chicago Bulls, Michael Jordan said Derrick Rose is the MVP of the league. Agree or disagree?
Hard to argue. He's taken a team that many picked to probably be 6th or 7th in the Eastern Conference to a chance right now. They're only a couple games out of the best record in the conference. I think there's some great players out there right now, but I don't see anybody better than him right now. I would have thought for the first half of the season, I would have said Manu Ginobili would have been the guy. But right now, for what he's done for his team, it's been incredible.
MVP is such an interesting award because there's so many kind of prisms to view it through. I think for the most part, people value winning.
Yep.
A guy like Kevin Love is not going to be in an MVP conversation, even though he's had a spectacular statistical year. But then you take a team like the Spurs, who have been the best team.
Yep.
They only get 2 All-Stars, at the break. But Derrick Rose, I think, as he continues to play and as the Bulls continue to, trend upward, he's been phenomenal.
Well, one of the things I see him doing that the great players did in the past, I had the great fortune of coaching Michael and Magic. And what they did is every offseason they took part of their game to try to improve and elevate. And I remember Michael going to try to become a better jump shooter, and then a year later become a better three-point shooter. You saw Derrick Rose do the same thing this offseason. And the shots he's making on the perimeter were something he had no chance of doing a year ago at this time. I think it's been great.
With his frame and with his quickness, he can just get you on your heels. And now he has that ability to jump up and shoot it in. So hard to guard.
Do either of you cry in the locker room?
No. No. I don't know. Have we ever had a player cry in a locker room? Unless I was yelling at them.
No, I don't think. Not that I can remember. I laugh sometimes until I cry because of the stuff that goes on in there. But other than that,
no. I've been mad, but I can't ever think I've cried about it. No.
All right, Coach. Well, sticking along those lines, what exactly is wrong with the Miami Heat?
Expectations is the first thing wrong. But they asked for it. When you make the big to-do out of everything that's gone about putting together that team, from LeBron's show to the introduction night that they had in Miami for the 3 of them that the team staged, to every one of those players being on Twitter and talking about everything, that's what comes with the territory. And so their scrutiny is probably the biggest burden that they carry right now. I think it takes time for a team to come together and play like that. I don't think you can ever do it very quickly. The Celtics might be the one exception a few years ago, but they had older players with a little bit more experience who had kind of been through all the wars and were starving for success to win a championship. None of those guys had. They didn't have guys with rock star mentalities or perceptions either. And this is a whole different scene. I don't know that it's good for the game, but they've gotten what they've deserved in some ways.
How difficult, I think, to me, every time I watch the Miami Heat play, I think about Eric Spoelstra and how great a job he did.
Yep.
Being a head coach his first couple of years, but how difficult it must be, because I know coaches always talk about block out the distractions and but it's almost impossible.
It's a daily circus because you are asked to evaluate your team almost on a minute-by-minute basis. In years past, you could kind of do this in anonymity to some degree. Now, media is allowed into your practice for 30 minutes every day. They're going to follow you. USA Today has a daily column about the Heat and their update. I just find that, almost impossible to deal with. I made a joke to somebody the other day, and I said it kind of tongue-in-cheek, but You know, you could solve a lot of the media problems of the world if you just put Charlie Sheen in charge of the team, because you could have all the questions that are crazy answered in one building. It's got to be tough for Eric to deal with that every day. But you know, I think if I were in his shoes, which I'm glad I'm not, but if I were in his shoes, I think you have to really kind of stay in a tunnel a little bit about how you coach, and you know, you can't deal with the outside stuff. There's an old quote that says, the more you worry about what the media and fans say, the closer you are to sitting with them. So I think that's his task right now, is to stay on task and not get distracted by all of that.
When we look big picture at the NBA and kind of this mini trend, who knows if it will become kind of an overarching trend of guys joining up with other guys. We've seen Melo now is with the Knicks. There's a lot of talk that other players will join him. Darren Williams goes to the Nets, and Prokhorov, the owner, is talking about having other big stars join him. As someone that was in the NBA for a lot of years, what's your opinion on these guys kind of joining up with each other?
Well, it's a different world in the sense that free agency has now allowed that. Before, players were afraid to become free agents if they were offered pretty good contracts because they wanted security. Mm-hmm. Now these guys know that they can kind of manufacture what they want a little bit more. But there's one reality that's still true. You always have needed, I felt, 2.5 stars to win a championship. And it was just a different method of acquiring them. When I was in LA, we didn't become great until we got Magic to go with Kareem and Norm Nixon, and then they got Byron Scott and James Worthy when Wilkes and Nixon left. You had Philadelphia not able to win a championship until they added Moses Malone to Dr. J and Barkley and those guys. So those things have always kind of been there. San Antonio has always kind of had a big three. Mm-hmm. It's just that they acquired them in a different way. Now with free agency, it's the way of the world. I think we're going to see it in several sports. I think it's possible that it could happen in hockey at some point. Football and baseball is a little tougher because you have large rosters. You know, right. When you have 50-something on a football team and 25-something on a baseball team, you have problems. But you see pitchers and so on, and you see the Yankees doing that with some of the teams. Boston has been able to do it. It's the teams that can do it through free agency or a pressure trade. When they know they're going to lose a player. We probably can't go back and change that anymore. It's what we've moved on to in this business. But I still think it's the same. You need 3 players like that to be able to win a championship.
Well, it'll be interesting to follow the NBA playoffs this year, and especially in the Eastern Conference, to see who comes out on top. We want to thank Coach T for joining us on this week's show. As always, you can go to ConnecticutSun.com for the latest updates on the team. Don't forget about season tickets being on sale and the mini plans as well. We'll see you next time.